In the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, if you haven't watched it, please do. One of the characters says he can prove that the origin of any word is Greek. The word cryptography isn't an exception. It derives from the Greek kryptos, meaning hidden or vault, and the suffix graphy derives from graphene or logia, which stand for to write and study, respectively. In a nutshell, cryptography is the practice and study of techniques for secure communication in the presence of adversarial behavior. This is a fascinating field that we haven't explored yet on our podcast. And that's why we are here today. We invited Dr. Dalia Khader, who has an impressive professional background, to share her knowledge about the topic. She currently works as the CISO of the International Division of Swiss Life and is the award winner of CISO of the Year 2021 in Luxembourg. Dalia has over 15 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity, starting her career in academia, where she did extensive research in modern cryptography. Excited about this episode? So are we. So let's jump right into it then. Welcome to a new episode of Tech Talk. This is episode 3, season 6, about critical infrastructure, and this one is titled The One on Uncovering Cryptography. Hello, Armin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Festive season is in full swing. I'm eating a lot, like making up for the whole year of not eating, I think.
Yes, you've been saving up to this moment.
Yeah,
yes.
I know I will feel very guilty and have already an idea of a New Year's resolution. But yeah, how are you?
I'm good as well. I mean, I know, let's not talk about the weather, but I'm looking forward to the holidays, let's say. And what about our guest, Dalia? Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me first here. And I'm in favor, Arman. I like the festive Christmas too. So yes,
a lot of food.
A lot of food, a lot of colors, a lot of light.
So welcome again. Thanks for accepting joining us. Armin, do you want to ask the first question?
Yeah, so it's a very simple one. So what's cryptography all about?
What's cryptography all about? You think it's simple. It's not that simple.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
We have 28 more minutes, so let's get to it.
I'll try doing it in a nutshell. So basically, cryptography, if I want to really do it in a nutshell, is about it's the study. It's a study, so kind of between math and physics. So it's a study of how to secure communication overall. So that's maybe the easiest simplified description of cryptography, I would say. But then when I say communication, it's really whenever information leaves your head or heart, it's already communication. So if you have information on a paper, you can already start thinking cryptography, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's how I would explain it.
And what is the origin of cryptography?
So, okay. The misconception today about cryptography is you say communication, I say communication, immediately people think digital, internet, etc. But reality is communication is, since humanity started, we started communicating. And the need of making things hidden or secret started very early on. So therefore, cryptography as a word actually comes from the ancient Greek. So crypto means hidden, basically, and graphy is written, and traces of humans trying to hide secrets goes all the way back to, you know, the Egyptian old days, ancient empire of Egypt, and the hieroglyphs of Egypt, and you see it across, you know, one empire after the other, being used in a totally different way, mainly for military purposes, but also there are traces of it used for hiding commercial, let's say, secret trades. In the times of the Mesopotamia, they found clay trays where it has really craves in it that hides a recipe for pottery. You know, so even then they were thinking communication is needed, but we need to somehow keep it secret or hide it somehow.
So the purpose of cryptography really is to conceal the valuable, or what is perceived to be valuable in a way, in a
In a communication.
in a
Yeah.
communication. It at least it started pretty much there, or the majority of it when it started in the old times was about hiding information. But today it's securing communication, and there is a difference between both. So securing communication, one item of it is just confidentiality, where you're worried when we're interacting over the internet, is someone reading what we're doing. But there's quite a lot of other elements to it today. It took a totally different world with the digital world. So it includes things like, you're doing online banking, for example. Does the person logging in, is it the same person that should be logging into this account? When you're dealing with it, is it really my bank website there, or is it not? There you have elements like authentication, authenticating the person behind the screen. There's elements of non-repudiation. Non-repudiation is saying, for example, again, going for the online banking, you're doing a transaction. Tomorrow I do a transaction and tomorrow I deny it. How can the bank prove that I really did it? So the denial element also is done through cryptography. So today it's way more than just concealing information.
And what are the types of techniques that we see in cryptography today?
They vary. The major part of cryptography today, and it's mainly also the fact that it went to the digital world. The major part comes from mathematics. So coming up with mathematical problems that need certain constraints to solve them or not. So what I like about cryptography, because I did my studies in cryptography, that's the element that got me into information security, is it is math, what I call magic math, where you're doing mathematics, but you have to put the human factor in the equation too. How can I, conceal information from everyone but the person who needs to know? That's a mathematical question, but there's a human factor there,
That's very interesting.
Yes, indeed. And I'm sure a lot of people also think of espionage when they talk about crypto. I mean, it's something that probably pops up in our minds. It did in mine. But we have a burning question we think our listeners might have too. What's the difference between cryptography and encryption?
Encryption is a part of cryptography. It's just one of many algorithms that exist, or schemes that exist in cryptography. The idea of encryption is simply concealing information from everyone but the person who needs to know. So it's really scrambling data in such a way that there is no return. You cannot really reveal the data unless you have a secret that reverse engineers that kind of scrambling. Yeah. So that's encryption. Cryptography is really a wider science, and today it's becoming even more and more wide because of the digital world. And it includes basically algorithms that consider, for example, authentication we mentioned before, how to prove my identity, algorithms that prove. There are algorithms that are created in cryptography such that I prove to you that I know something without revealing anything about it. Just that, for example, I know the secret for a certain vault or so on. So there is protocols and advancement of cryptography that don't necessarily link to. So in IT security, we have confidentiality is a key, but integrity of data is a key. Availability of data is a key. It doesn't, encryption mainly focuses on confidentiality, but cryptography can address integrity to authentication and so on. So it can address way more than just that today. It's general secure communication. So
very clear.
Yeah.
Very clear. So how has cryptography evolved over the years? We touched upon a bit the ancient times, and then
Yes.
but in the recent history, let's say.
I did some research. when we were developing the questions, and I know that there is also some history with the World War II.
Yes. Yeah.
So it would be great to understand how it has evolved.
Okay, so cryptography's involvement has because you mentioned World War II, has quite an impact from military reasons. And you can understand why. You want to communicate with your allies, but not your enemies.
Obviously.
Yeah? So therefore, a lot of the cryptography evolved quite a lot in the World War was one of the big factors where cryptography had to take a different turn because with the Enigma machine and so on, they had to the world was split, allies, enemies, and you still had to communicate. But for me, the turning point was the 70s for cryptography, and the reason is at that time the world realized they came out of the World War. And the world realized at that time that we need to find means to communicate in case there was a nuclear war. That was really the subject at that point. And that's how internet was born. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of internet was absolutely different. They came up with what they call the mother of internet, which is the ARPANET. And at that time, they started, the thinking how to communicate, and they did nodes, and there was the first cross ocean kind of between the States and London, messages, emails, etc. So that was the first of the internet. And cryptography the cryptographers realized the importance of such communication being protected. So you started seeing the first schemes that we still use today for cryptographic algorithms, and they're still used today in our modern internet, be it even the simplest things like browsing the internet, etc. Mm-hmm. It's algorithms based on what we created in the 70s. So there was a turn in the 70s that made cryptography what we call the modern cryptography.
So you already mentioned it. You gave some examples like authentication, but where else are we using cryptography today? I mean, probably our listeners don't even realize that there is cryptography behind some things that they use in their daily lives.
I'm sure they don't realize that they're using it every single point of day. They're using internet. They're using it throughout the day. You're using it without realizing. The moment you go on a browser and type in where you're going, there is a protocol crossing the internet which is encrypted. The moment you log into a website, or there is a protocol behind it that says that is indeed Carla, or there is something that, a mathematical equation running in the background that you don't realize it exists. Today, basic elements like your internet, your Wi-Fi, etc. That the question is always how to protect it. Cryptography is in the back part of it. It's your password is one element, and behind it there's a cryptographic algorithm. So we're using it quite a lot, pretty much in almost every transaction in the backend. There has to be an element of cryptography,
And in your opinion, is it the way that it should be? I mean, where does it make sense to use cryptography, and where?
It's a building block. That's how I see it. It's a building block in the world of IT security. And using cryptography alone, okay, the mathematics can show you, okay, it's strong and really smart people came up with such mathematics. But on its own, it's not going to be ever enough, because it's really addressing the low-level IT security. So I mentioned password, for example. A password is just another top layer, or the multi-factor authentication, another top layer to make cryptography usable, but also in a smart way, keeping the security implementation of it. So it's a building block, and on its own will not really secure much. And it's about what other security defenses do you have on top of that building block, using that building block to secure you.
Okay, can you give us some examples?
Some examples. So, for example, let's keep it simple. You have your laptop. Today, almost every machine, new modern machine, will have inbuilt in it algorithms to encrypt your laptop, What does that mean? That means the moment I switch my laptop on, I can access data, I can see it. But due to certain levels of, implementation of how the startup works of the operating system, it's doing the decryption in the back end. Decryption is the algorithm to reveal back the information from the scrambled state a citizen. Yeah, so it's doing the decryption on the back end. Now you're using the laptop. The moment you're using the laptop, it makes no sense that the data you're using and you have it open, the Word document you have open is encrypted, because usability takes priority over confidentiality. And in this status, since it's your laptop, you're sitting in front of it, you're thinking, okay, the risk of data being revealed is low. It requires someone standing behind your shoulder. The moment you switch off your laptop again, it's back to the encrypted form. If the laptop gets stolen, the thief has to do way more than, use the hardware to get the data,
Wow.
So that's the kind of levels that you have with IT security, with just looking into the laptop. And every item I mentioned before, browsing, emails, etc., will have that kind of level.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. It's me again? Okay, so the next question is, as I mentioned, the main topic of our season on cybersecurity is critical infrastructure. And we think that it's undeniable that we are dependent on it. As we mentioned in our previous episodes, if a data center, the internet, and global electrical grids stop working, we are in deep trouble. It's crucial that we are able to secure data as it moves from place to place without compromising performance or security. How can this be achieved?
There's no secret recipe. Let's put it this way. Let's start with this. There's no one secret recipe. It has to be layers of security and depending on the needs, obviously. So how does cryptography though fit in there? How does cryptography fit in there? The thing is, today, as I said, with every single interaction you're doing, be it, so when you're talking infrastructure, critical infrastructure, we're talking basically everything. You're talking about your financial institutions, the water, gas, and electricity,
patients' data, in hospitals,
etc. You're talking pretty much everything, and every item there is using the digital world in the sense that they have to be connecting, they have to be authorizing, they have to be capturing. So generally, cybersecurity captures really 3 items: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Cryptography plays role in 2 of those 3 items strongly, which is integrity and confidentiality. It doesn't play much of a role in availability, but it plays in integrity and confidentiality. Your data, when you're talking about patient data, etc., if someone can manipulate it, it's not the secrecy of it is not the only problem. Manipulation also, banking, finance. If we go into a world where I can change everything that digitally exists financially as evidence, the integrity of data there is important. And cryptography is one of, I would say, the lower layer of protection. It's really embedded in other layers, but it's embedded in every single layer. So that's why there is initiatives today being concerned about what would happen if post-quantum computing takes place.
Yes, which is one of our questions.
Yeah.
You're anticipating.
Yeah, so it is a rapidly emerging technology, and we also read an article recently that whose title was "Quantum Computers Mean Cryptography Needs to Change, and Soon." What are your thoughts on this? And also, just out of personal curiosity, what is your thought on post-quantum cryptography?
So, okay, it does need to change that. It's not the crypto that needs to change, it's the usage of crypto that needs to change in some sense. So it has been, because I was purely a cryptographer, academic cryptographer before, and now I'm working more in an industrial job. There has been always one speed ahead or one step ahead in the academia world that made cryptography. So the academics would be creating cryptography that is not used today, and it's not implemented today due to either efficiency or hardness of changing things as they work today. So coming to the post-quantum, the challenge we have, first, let's look at the half-full cup. There is cryptography that is resistant to post-quantum. And the reason is we have two types of designs, let's say, with cryptography. We have cryptography designed on mathematical equations that base their security on the concept that if you bring the best supercomputers existing to today's world and put them together to kind of break this cryptography, it will require that much years. So financially, to put all this to break a certain crypto becomes not worth it. Therefore, it's secure. You see, so it's basing what we call, the computational model. It's saying, it's like bringing a kid, saying, okay, if you bring a 2-year-old to solve a 6-piece puzzle, it would take him half an hour. But if you bring a 6-year-old to solve a 6-piece puzzle, it will take him 2 hours, 3 hours. So that's basing it on the age and the power of, kids, assuming we're all equally smart. Obviously, there's other factors, but but it's basing it on factors related to how computers are designed today. And today, the computers are designed in such a way that it's based on electric kind of circuits, zeros and ones, bits and, one bit of either 0 or 1. And we're doing all our mathematical computations today according to that concept. Quantum allows, due to quantum physics properties, allows having more than just that 2-bit status in a sequence. It's either 0 or 1. It allows the bit to have 4 statuses. What that means is that when quantum computing comes out, it's going to be way faster than normal computing. And it will be able to solve equations that we relied on for security of cryptography way faster.
Okay.
Yeah? So that's the whole fear, that once quantum comes, then all those algorithms based on power of computing will break down.
That's scary.
Well, looking at the cup, there is quantum-resistant cryptography. Looking at the other half of the cup, let's say, there is quantum-resistant cryptography. There is cryptography that the mathematical problem is more based on, no matter what, the worst-case scenario is. So whatever computer you bring, the worst-case scenario will remain the same. And the problem today for the post-quantum world is the algorithms, and mainly we're talking here the public key cryptography algorithms, so specific kind mainly, are used quite frequently in our browsing, in our emails, in our VPN connections, in our multi-factor authentications, digital signatures. They're used quite a lot there. And the ones we're using are, as I said before, based on algorithms we designed in the 70s. Not exactly the same algorithms, they evolved, but based on them. The concept, the complexities is relevant to the same type of maths. And those need to be changed. The good news is there are already initiatives for that. So there are, on European level already, ENSA is looking into the post-quantum standardization, etc. NIST is also, which is in the US, they're looking into the same kind of thing, which algorithms are post-quantum resistant, which are acceptable for the future, how do we change what exists today, and that's the harder bit, to use those algorithms. you know. So yes, there's a lot of work, but there is also light in the end of the tunnel. We just need to get ready for it. We just need to get ready for it.
And is that soon rather than later?
It will take time. It will take time. It has to be, the way I see it, and this is probably a personal view, it has to be a worldwide initiative. The way we fought the pandemic 2 years ago, where it became suddenly a worldwide joining us, it has to be a worldwide initiative. We all will get impacted by, let's say, internet breaking down. So we all need to work on it together to make it, quantum resistant. And the people who have the knowledge and know-how exist. So at least we know that it's not far-fetched, but it has to be joint work. It has to be joint work between governance, institutions, people, and obviously cryptographers are to lead it.
I guess that's the challenge as well, because I don't know how much people learn lessons from the pandemic, but let's hope so.
Good news is when we were in it, we worked together at it. So we stopped seeing, the differences between us. We joined hand and we said we have to fight this together. And I think that's the attitude we have to take with quantum, post-quantum cryptography. So.
Yeah, and there has been a history of controversial legal issues surrounding cryptography, especially since the advent of affordable computers has made widespread access to high-quality cryptography possible. So what are your thoughts on domestic use of cryptography?
Cryptography, okay. It's like any technology can be used for good and bad. If you want to create a great algorithm that hides your secret, guess what? The adversary or the attackers will use the same algorithm to communicate together. It's just the natural behavior,
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, it went into quite a lot of history in the sense that it was at one point, encryption was, for example, considered at one point a weapon. So when the PGP, pretty good privacy software at that time came out, which was an open source software. It was around mid-90s when it came out, if I'm not mistaken. And it was seen, because it's open source and everyone can use it, it was seen as exporting weapons from the state. So it was seen that the person implementing that software has broken the law for implementing that. Now it's used pretty much in all email security. So if not similar technologies, so it's accepted, and that kind of questioning will always be there for cryptography. You want your traffic to be analyzed so that you make sure that the malware is not coming towards your laptop, etc. But if your traffic is encrypted, then analyzing it is not easy. So it is a difficult question.
Mm-hmm.
But do I forbid it because of worrying about it? It's not possible. It's not possible to stop it. Technology, when you're creating it, it will be used for good and bad.
Makes sense.
The dark web is based also on encrypted routing algorithms, to keep anonymity of people. Used for good, used for bad, So you cannot stop it.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, these are all our questions. Do you have any last thoughts or message you want to convey to our listeners?
Well, first, I hope they enjoy it.
I'm sure that it was really, really interesting, and I learned a lot. What about you, Armin?
Yeah, me too. It reminded me of a book I've read actually quite a while ago now, and it's called The Dream Machine by J.C. It's a book about J.C.R. Licklider and the revolution that made computing personal. That's the name of the book. And why I really liked it was because it really talked about the origins of the internet. And so ARPA and all of these people that were involved, like Alan Kay and so on. They talk about, really explain how the cryptography came to be. And it was also in part thanks to, the modern cryptography, thanks to ARPA and J.C. Kleider. And he was actually a person who was behind a lot of these initiatives that we take for granted today, like even personal computing, because he was a head of ARPA, now called ARPA, and he was able to sponsor a lot of these programs. So a very interesting book for anybody wanting to have like general overview of the topic, among other things.
I also think of messaging apps. We didn't mention those, and there was some controversy around it a few months ago, if you remember.
The COVID tracing apps, same thing.
Oh, yes.
The COVID tracing app, same thing. Do we want to trace? Is it privacy or security? Are we tracing people for breaking their privacy, or are we achieving security for COVID? And the algorithms provided were based on crypto algorithms. So, So it's like anything. Also, in IT security, it's a debate. It's and you have to create it because you should not be worried about it misused, like any other technology.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time today, and we hope that we see you again one day soon.
I hope you enjoyed as well.
I enjoyed. It was very pleasant. Yes, and
thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's all for today. This is Tech Talk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. Don't miss out on any future episodes by hitting subscribe. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode.